My name is Warren Mitchell. I'm 53 years old, and what I discovered in my own home shattered everything I believed about the people I love, everything I thought I knew about being a father, about raising a good man, about the values I poured into my son's heart for over 2 decades. It all crumbled in a matter of weeks. And the worst part? I saw it coming. I felt it in my bones. But I was too proud, too stubborn, too convinced that my methods were foolproof to accept the truth, until it was almost too late. I'm telling you this story today because I need you to understand something. I need you to hear this from a broken father who thought he did everything right. A man who provided, who disciplined, who taught right from wrong, who never missed a baseball game or a parent-teacher conference. A man who believed that love combined with structure would create an honorable son. And yet, here I am, sitting in this empty house, replaying every moment, every decision, wondering where the hell I went wrong. But what I saw that night, 3 months ago, standing in the doorway of my own living room, watching my son's face twisted with a cruelty I didn't recognize, I'll never forget it. The sound of his voice when he said those words, the emptiness in his eyes, the realization that the boy I raised had become someone I didn't know, someone I'm not sure I even liked anymore. Before I continue with this story, before I take you through the pain and the anger and the eventual awakening that changed everything, I need to ask you something. Please, if you're listening to this, hit that like button, subscribe to this channel, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from right now. Tell me what city, what country, what corner of this world you're in, because right now, sitting here in this silence, I need to know that someone out there still believes that stories like mine matter, that someone out there understands what it feels like to love someone so deeply and watch them destroy everything you built together. I need to know I'm not alone in this pain. Let me take you back to the beginning, to the days when life felt simple, predictable, almost boring in its perfection. My son, Elliot, was born on a rainy October morning 24 years ago. I remember holding him for the first time, this tiny, wrinkled creature with my wife's eyes and my stubborn chin, and making a silent promise. I promised him I would be the father mine never was. I would be present. I would be consistent. I would teach him to be strong, independent, capable of standing on his own 2 feet in this cruel world. My wife Diane and I built our life around that promise. We weren't rich, but we were comfortable. I worked as a mechanical engineer at a manufacturing plant 40 minutes from our home in suburban Ohio. Diane managed the office at our local medical clinic. We had a 3-bedroom house with a backyard big enough for a swing set and a garden. We had Sunday dinners with my mother-in-law. We had movie nights every Friday. We had routines, traditions, stability. Elliot grew up knowing exactly what was expected of him. Homework before television, chores before allowance, respect before privileges. I didn't believe in coddling. I believed in consequences. When Elliot was 7 and broke our neighbor's window playing baseball in the front yard after I'd specifically told him not to, I made him mow their lawn for free every week for 2 months. When he was 12 and lied about his grades, I took away his gaming console for an entire semester. When he was 16 and snuck out to a party, he lost his driving privileges for 3 months. Some people called me strict. Diane sometimes said I was too hard on him. But I saw results. Elliot was polite. He said, "Yes, sir," and "No, ma'am." He made the honor roll. He played varsity soccer. He got into a decent state university on a partial academic scholarship. He studied business administration because I told him it was practical, stable, the kind of degree that would guarantee him a good life. Those were the good years. The years when I could look at my son and feel pride swelling in my chest. The years when strangers would compliment his manners, his work ethic, his respectful demeanor. I thought I'd cracked the code. I thought I'd figured out what so many parents these days couldn't seem to grasp, that children need boundaries, discipline, structure, that love without accountability creates entitled, weak adults. Every morning, I'd wake up at 5:30, make my coffee, and sit in my favorite chair by the window, watching the sunrise and feeling grateful. Grateful for my health, my family, my son who was going to make something of himself, who was going to carry on the Mitchell name with honor and integrity. But soon, very soon, I started noticing small things that didn't make sense, little cracks in the perfect picture I'd painted for myself. And those cracks, those tiny fissures I tried so hard to ignore, would eventually split wide open and swallow everything whole. It started about 6 months after Elliot graduated from college. He'd moved back home temporarily while he looked for a job in marketing or sales, something entry-level that would get his foot in the door. I told him he could stay rent-free for 3 months, maximum. After that, he'd need to contribute $500 a month or find his own place. Fair was fair. I wasn't running a charity for grown men. At first, everything seemed normal. Elliot would wake up, work on his resume, apply to jobs online, go to the gym, help Diane with dinner. But then I started noticing changes, subtle ones at first. He stopped making eye contact during conversations. When I'd ask him how the job search was going, he'd give vague, dismissive answers. "It's fine, Dad. I've got some leads. I'm working on it." These things take time. His tone started changing, too. There was this edge to his voice, this barely concealed resentment whenever I offered advice or asked questions. Like I was bothering him, like my concern was an intrusion rather than a father's natural interest in his son's future. One evening, I came home from work and found Elliot on the couch, playing video games. Nothing unusual about that, except it was 4 in the afternoon on a Tuesday, and when I asked if he'd sent out any applications that day, he rolled his eyes. Actually rolled his eyes at me. "Dad, I'm taking a break," he said, not looking away from the screen. "I've been applying all morning." "All morning?" I repeated, keeping my voice calm. "It's 4 o'clock. You've had 6 hours since then to do something productive." I said I'm taking a break. God, you're always on my case about something. That was new. That tone, that attitude. In 24 years, Elliot had never spoken to me like that. Sure, we'd had our disagreements, our teenage arguments about curfews and rules, but there had always been a baseline of respect. This felt different. This felt like contempt. Diane noticed it too. "He's just stressed about the job situation," she told me that night in bed. "Give him some space. He'll come around." But it got worse. He started sleeping until noon, stopped helping around the house, left dirty dishes in the sink, clothes on the bathroom floor, empty beer bottles in the living room. When I confronted him about it, he'd shrug and say he'd get to it later. He never did. I'd hear him on the phone sometimes, late at night, his voice low and conspiratorial, laughing in a way that made my skin crawl. Once I walked past his room and heard him say, "Yeah, they have no idea. They're completely clueless. It's actually kind of pathetic." I stopped in the hallway, my heart pounding. Who was he talking about? Were we the pathetic, clueless ones? My own son? The worst part was how he looked at me. Or rather, how he didn't look at me. He'd stare right through me, like I was furniture, like I was an obstacle between him and the life he really wanted. When he did make eye contact, there was something cold there, something calculating, something that made me feel like a stranger in my own home. I tried talking to him, man to man, father to son. I sat him down one Saturday morning and said, "Elliot, what's going on with you? You're different. Something's changed and I'm worried." He laughed. Not a warm laugh, not a reassuring laugh. A bitter, mocking laugh that cut right through me. "Nothing's changed, Dad. Maybe you're just finally seeing who I really am." What does that mean? It means I'm tired of pretending. I'm tired of being your perfect little project. Your obedient soldier who follows every rule and jumps through every hoop you set up. "I gave you structure," I said, my voice rising despite my effort to stay calm. "I gave you discipline. I made you into a responsible adult. You made me into someone who resents every second he spends in this house," he shot back. "You made me feel like nothing I did was ever good enough unless it met your standards, your impossibly high, suffocating standards." I sat there, stunned. Where was this coming from? What had I done except love him, provide for him, teach him how to be a man? "If you're so miserable here," I said slowly, "then maybe you should leave." "Oh, I will. Trust me, I will. As soon as I have enough money saved up." "Saved up? From what? You don't have a job." He smiled then, a smile that didn't reach his eyes, a smile that made my blood run cold. "You'd be surprised what I've been up to, Dad." And then he walked away, leaving me sitting there with a knot of dread forming in my stomach. Until one night, just 3 days later, I saw something that made my heart stop. Something that confirmed every terrible suspicion that had been building in my mind. I didn't want to believe it. God, I fought against believing it with everything in me. Because accepting what I was seeing, what I was feeling, meant accepting that I'd failed. That despite all my rules and all my discipline and all my careful planning, I'd raised a son who had become someone I couldn't recognize. I started second-guessing myself constantly. Maybe I was being paranoid. Maybe this was just a phase, a quarter-life crisis, the kind of thing all young men go through when they're struggling to find their place in the world. Maybe Diane was right, and I just needed to give him space, give him time, let him figure things out on his own. But then, I'd remember that look in his eyes, that cold, calculating look, and I'd remember the things he'd said, the resentment, the contempt, and I knew, deep in my gut, that something was very wrong. I tried talking to Diane about it, really talking, not just mentioning my concerns in passing. One night after dinner, after Elliot had retreated to his room, I pulled her aside. "Something's going on with him," I said. "Something serious. I can feel it." She sighed, that weary sigh she'd been using more and more lately whenever I brought up Elliot. "Warren, you're being too hard on him. He's adjusting. It's difficult for young people these days, finding jobs, figuring out their lives. He just needs support, not judgment." "I'm not judging him. I'm worried about him." "Then show him that. Stop interrogating him every time you see him. Stop criticizing every little thing he does. Just be his father, not his drill sergeant." That stung. It stung because part of me wondered if she was right. Had I been too hard on him all these years? Had my discipline crossed some invisible line into harshness? Into cruelty, even? No. No, I couldn't accept that. I'd done what needed to be done. I'd prepared him for the real world, for the harsh reality that nobody was going to coddle him or make excuses for him out there. If anything, I hadn't been hard enough. Look at him now. Sleeping until noon, playing video games, showing no initiative, no drive, no sense of responsibility. But the doubt gnawed at me, kept me up at night, made me replay every interaction, every punishment, every stern lecture I'd ever given him. Had I damaged him somehow? Had I pushed too hard, expected too much? I tried to connect with him differently, soften my approach. One evening I knocked on his door and asked if he wanted to watch a game with me, like we used to when he was younger. He barely looked up from his phone. "Nah, I'm good." "Come on. It'll be like old times. I'll order pizza." "Dad, I said I'm good. I have plans." "Plans? What plans? Does it matter? You'll just find something wrong with them anyway." And there it was again. That edge, that resentment, that wall between us that seemed to grow thicker every day. I started watching him more closely, paying attention to his patterns, his behavior. He was definitely hiding something. He'd leave the house at odd hours, telling Diane he was meeting friends but never saying who or where. He'd come back smelling like cigarette smoke and cheap cologne, his eyes glazed over in a way that made me suspect he was doing more than just hanging out. Money started disappearing from Diane's purse, small amounts at first, $20 here, $30 there. When I confronted Elliot about it, he looked me dead in the eye and denied it. "I don't know what you're talking about. Maybe Mom's just forgetting where she puts her cash. Your mother doesn't forget things like that. Then maybe she's losing it. Or maybe you're making things up because you want a reason to come down on me." The gaslighting was masterful, almost made me doubt my own sanity. But I knew what I knew. I knew money was missing. I knew my son was lying. I knew something dark was happening under my own roof, and nobody else seemed willing to see it. Diane started defending him more aggressively. "He's our son, Warren. He's going through a rough time. We need to support him, not accuse him." "I'm not accusing him of anything. I'm trying to help him, but I can't help him if he's lying to us." "You're paranoid. You've always been so controlling, so suspicious. Maybe that's why he doesn't want to talk to you anymore." That cut deeper than anything else, because it planted a seed of doubt that grew roots in my mind. What if this was my fault? What if my methods, my rules, my iron grip on his childhood had pushed him away, turned him into this stranger who lived in my house but felt like an enemy? But the next morning, I found something that changed everything, something I couldn't ignore or explain away. And after that discovery, there was no more room for doubt. Only cold, hard reality staring me in the face, demanding that I take action, even though every part of me wanted to run away from the truth. I found the first piece of real evidence on a Thursday morning. Diane had already left for work, and Elliot was still asleep. I was taking out the trash when I noticed a crumpled receipt sticking out of the kitchen garbage can. Something made me pull it out, smooth it against the counter. It was from a jewelry store downtown. A high-end place, the kind where items start at a few $1,000s. The receipt was dated 3 days ago and showed a purchase of $2,800 for a woman's diamond bracelet. My hand started shaking. $2,800. Elliot didn't have $2,800. He didn't have a job. He'd been living off our generosity for months, claiming he couldn't afford to move out yet, unless he was getting money from somewhere else. I stood there in my kitchen, staring at that receipt, feeling my entire reality shift beneath my feet. Who was he buying expensive jewelry for? Where did he get the money, and why was he throwing away the evidence so carelessly, so arrogantly, like he didn't even care if we found out? That's when I made the decision. I was going to find out the truth, whatever it took. Even if the truth destroyed me, even if it confirmed every terrible suspicion I'd been harboring. I started by checking his room. I waited until he left the house that afternoon, told Diane I was going to take a nap, and then went through his space like a detective, his drawers, his closet, under his bed, his desk. I felt sick doing it, felt like I was violating his privacy, his trust. But then I remembered. He'd already violated mine. He'd been lying to us, stealing from us, treating us with contempt. In the bottom drawer of his nightstand, hidden under a stack of old textbooks, I found an envelope. Inside was nearly $3,000 in cash, crisp $100 bills bundled together with a rubber band. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I might pass out. Where did this money come from? What was he doing? I put everything back exactly as I found it, my hands trembling, my mind racing. I needed more information. I needed to understand what was happening before I confronted him. Because confronting him with just questions would get me nowhere. He was too good at lying now, too practiced at manipulation. That evening, I told Diane I needed to run some errands. Instead, I drove to an electronics store and bought a small, discreet camera. The kind you can hide on a bookshelf or in a plant. The kind that records everything and sends footage to your phone. I installed it in the living room the next morning, positioning it on the bookshelf behind a few family photos where it wouldn't be noticed. I told myself I was protecting my family. I told myself this was necessary, justified, the only way to get to the truth. But deep down, I knew I was terrified. Terrified of what I might see. Terrified of having my worst fears confirmed. Terrified of discovering that my son, the boy I'd raised and loved and sacrificed for, had become someone capable of things I couldn't even imagine. The waiting was torture. Every moment felt like an hour. I couldn't focus at work. I kept checking my phone, checking the camera feed, seeing nothing but our empty living room or Elliot playing video games or watching television. Then, on the third night of recording, something happened. It was almost midnight. I was in bed next to Diane, unable to sleep, when my phone buzzed with the motion alert from the camera. I grabbed it, my heart racing, and pulled up the live feed. Elliot was in the living room, but he wasn't alone. There were 3 other guys with him. I didn't recognize any of them. They looked older, rougher, the kind of men I'd always warned Elliot to stay away from. They were sitting on my couch, smoking cigarettes in my house, laughing about something. I turned up the volume on my phone, straining to hear what they were saying. "So when's the next one?" one of them asked. Elliot laughed, that same cold, bitter laugh I'd heard before. "Tomorrow night. Old couple. Lives alone. Keeps cash in the house. Should be easy." My blood turned to ice. "You sure about the info?" Another guy asked. Positive. My mom works at the clinic. She tells me everything. Never suspects a thing. She comes home talking about all the patients, their lives, their routines. It's like having an inside source. They all laughed, and I felt my world crumbling around me. And your dad? The first guy said. He's still clueless? Dad's a joke, Elliot said, and I could hear the venom in his voice even through the phone speaker. He thinks he's so smart, so in control. Thinks his rules and his discipline made me into this perfect son. He has no idea what I'm really doing, no idea that I've been playing him for years, pretending to be his obedient little soldier while I do whatever the hell I want. What if he finds out? He won't. And even if he does, what's he going to do? Turn in his own son? He's too proud for that. Too concerned about his precious reputation, his image of the perfect family. He'll protect me no matter what, because that's what fathers like him do. They protect their legacy, even when their legacy is garbage. I had to clamp my hand over my mouth to keep from making a sound. My entire body was shaking. Rage, betrayal, grief, disbelief, all of it crashing over me like a tidal wave. My son was planning to rob someone. My son had been using information from his mother's workplace, information about vulnerable people, to target them for burglary. My son had been lying to us, manipulating us, stealing from us, all while laughing about it with criminals. I pressed record on the camera app, made sure I was capturing every word, every face. This was evidence. This was proof. This was the moment everything changed. That night, watching the footage on my phone, listening to my son talk about us with such contempt, such cruelty, I felt something inside me break, something fundamental. The love was still there. God help me, the love was still there, but it was buried under layers of pain and anger so deep, I didn't know if I'd ever dig my way out. I didn't sleep that night. I just lay there in the dark, next to my sleeping wife, listening to her peaceful breathing and knowing I was about to destroy her world, about to destroy our family, about to make a choice that would change everything forever, but I couldn't let him do this. I couldn't let him hurt innocent people. I couldn't let him continue down this path, believing that his father was too weak, too proud, too concerned with image to stop him. He was wrong about me, dead wrong. And he was about to find out exactly what kind of man his father really was. I waited until morning. Dawn was breaking through the bedroom window when I finally got out of bed, every muscle in my body aching from tension, from lying perfectly still all night so I wouldn't wake Diane. I needed to move. I needed to think. I needed to figure out what the hell I was going to do with the information burning a hole in my brain. I made coffee with shaking hands, watching the sun rise over our quiet suburban street. This street where we'd raised our son, where we'd taught him to ride a bike, where he'd played with neighborhood kids and sold lemonade and seemed to everyone who knew us like a normal, happy, well-adjusted boy. What a lie. What a complete and total lie. Around 7 o'clock, I heard footsteps upstairs. Elliot was awake. My stomach churned with a mixture of rage and dread. Part of me wanted to storm up there, drag him down by his collar, and make him explain himself. Make him look me in the eye and tell me what he'd become. But I couldn't. Not yet. Because I needed to be smart about this. I needed to think about Diane, about the evidence I had, about the best way to handle this nightmare without making it worse. Elliot came downstairs around 8, looking casual and relaxed, like he didn't have a care in the world, like he hadn't spent last night planning a robbery with 3 criminals in our living room. "Morning," he said, grabbing a mug from the cabinet. I couldn't respond. I just stared at him, this stranger wearing my son's face, and felt nothing but cold fury. "You okay, Dad?" he asked, and I swear I saw a flicker of amusement in his eyes. Like this was all a game to him, like my pain was entertaining. "Fine," I managed to say. "Just fine." He poured us coffee, added sugar, stirred it slowly. "Big day at work today?" "Something like that." He leaned against the counter, studying me with those cold eyes. "You look tired. Didn't sleep well?" "No, I didn't." That's rough." He took a sip of his coffee. "Well, I've got plans today, so I'll be out for a while. Don't wait up." Plans. Right. Plans to rob an elderly couple because his mother had innocently mentioned them at the dinner table. He walked past me, and I had to grip the edge of the counter to keep from grabbing him, from shaking him, from demanding to know when he'd become this monster. After he left the house, I went back upstairs to our bedroom. Diane was getting ready for work, humming softly as she put on her earrings. "Morning, honey," she said, smiling at me in the mirror. "You're up early." "We need to talk," I said, closing the door behind me. Her smile faded. "What's wrong? You look terrible." "Diane, I need you to sit down." "Warren, you're scaring me." "Please, just sit down." She sat on the edge of our bed, her face pale, her hands clasped in her lap. I pulled out my phone, pulled up the camera footage from last night, and handed it to her. "Watch this," I said. "All of it. Don't say anything until it's over." I watched her face as she watched the video, watched the confusion turn to shock, turn to horror, turn to disbelief, watched the color drain from her cheeks, watched her hand fly to her mouth, watched tears start streaming down her face. When it ended, she just sat there, staring at the phone screen, shaking. That's not real," she whispered. "That's not Elliot. That can't be Elliot." "It's him," I said, my voice flat. "That's our son. That's what he's been doing while we've been protecting him, supporting him, giving him a roof over his head. Oh my God! Oh my God, Warren, what are we going to do?" I took the phone back, saved the video to 3 different locations. "We're going to stop him. We're going to make sure he doesn't hurt anyone. And then we're going to figure out what comes next." We can't go to the police. Warren, he's our son. He's planning to rob innocent people, Diane. Elderly people who could get hurt." "But if we turn him in, he'll go to jail. He'll have a record. His life will be ruined." "His life is already ruined," I said. And I felt the truth of those words settle over me like a burial shroud. He did this to himself. He made these choices. And now he has to face the consequences. She broke down then, completely broke down, sobbing into her hands, her whole body shaking. I sat next to her, put my arm around her shoulders, and let her cry. Because I knew my tears would come later. Right now, I needed to be strong, needed to be clear-headed, needed to make the hardest decision any father could ever make. But even as I held my sobbing wife, even as I tried to comfort her, I kept replaying Elliot's words in my head. "Dad's a joke. He thinks he's so smart, so in control. He has no idea what I'm really doing." And the worst part, the part that made me want to scream, was that he was right. I hadn't known. Despite all my vigilance, all my rules, all my attempts to shape him into a good man. I'd been blind to what he was becoming, blind to the resentment festering inside him, blind to the darkness growing behind those eyes I thought I knew. I froze then, froze in that moment of realization. My whole world collapsed in a single frame. Everything I'd believed about myself as a father, as a man, as someone who had his life under control. It all shattered. Because I'd failed. I'd failed in the most fundamental way a father can fail. I'd raised a son who not only rejected my values, but actively despised them, despised me. And worse, I'd been arrogant enough to think it could never happen to me, to my family, because I'd done everything right, hadn't I? I'd been strict but fair, demanding but loving, present and involved. I'd checked all the boxes, followed all the rules of good parenting, but none of it mattered. None of it made a difference. Because here I was, holding evidence of my son's criminal activities, listening to my wife sob, and realizing that the person I'd spent 24 years trying to mold into a good man had become someone I didn't recognize. Someone I wasn't sure I could save. But what happened next, in the hours that followed that devastating morning, was even worse than discovering the truth. Because the truth was just the beginning. The real nightmare was yet to come. I made the call at noon, not to the police, not yet. I called my brother-in-law Greg, who'd been a detective with the city police department for 15 years before retiring. If anyone could help me figure out what to do, how to handle this without destroying what was left of our family, it was him. He came over within an hour. Diane had called in sick to work, and we were both sitting at the kitchen table, hollow-eyed and exhausted, when he arrived. "Show me everything," he said, skipping the pleasantries. I played him the video, showed him the cash I'd found in Elliot's room, told him about the expensive jewelry receipt, the missing money from Diane's purse, all of it. Greg watched and listened without interrupting, his cop face firmly in place. When I finished, he sat back in his chair and exhaled slowly. "Warren, Diane, you know what this means, right? This isn't just some kid acting out. This is serious criminal activity, conspiracy to commit burglary, possibly more, and if they're targeting elderly people based on inside information, that's premeditation. That's sophisticated." "He's our son," Diane whispered. "I know, and I'm sorry. But that doesn't change what he's planning to do." "What are our options?" I asked. Greg leaned forward, his expression grave. "Honestly, not many good ones. You could confront him, try to scare him straight. But based on what I just heard on that video, he doesn't think you have the guts to stop him. He'll either lie his way out of it or get angry and defensive. Either way, he's not going to confess or show remorse." "So we do nothing?" Diane asked, her voice rising. "We just let him rob people?" "No. The other option is to contact the police. Give them the evidence. Let them handle it." "And send our son to prison," I said. "Probably jail, at least initially. Maybe prison depending on what else they find. But Warren, if you don't stop him now, he's going to hurt someone. Maybe physically, maybe not, but he's going to ruin lives, including his own." I felt like I was drowning, like every option was a wrong choice, but doing nothing felt worse than doing something. "There's a third option," Greg said carefully. "It's risky, and it's not exactly by the book, but it might work." "What?" I asked. "We set up a sting. Tonight, when he thinks he's going to rob that couple, we make sure he can't." We catch him in the act, or right before, and we intervene. We make it clear that we know everything, that we have evidence, that his criminal buddies are going to face consequences. And we give him one chance to get help, to change course, to avoid prison time. How would that even work? I still have friends on the force. I make a few calls. Explain the situation. Keep it vague. Keep your names out of it initially. They set up surveillance on the target house. When Elliot and his friends show up, they get stopped. I'll be there. I'll make sure Elliot understands that the only reason he's not going to jail immediately is because his parents gave him up to save innocent people. That his parents chose to do the right thing, even though it destroyed them. Diane was shaking her head. This is insane. This is our son we're talking about. I know, Greg said gently. And I'm sorry, but what's more insane? Letting him go through with it? Waiting until he actually hurts someone? I looked at Diane, really looked at her. Saw the agony in her eyes, the battle between her love for our son and her knowledge of what was right. We have to stop him, I said quietly. We have to. Even if he hates us forever, even if this destroys our family, we can't let him do this. She closed her eyes. Tears leaked out from under her lids. Okay, she whispered. Okay. The rest of the afternoon was a blur. Greg made his calls. I paced the house like a caged animal, my stomach in knots, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might explode. Diane sat on the couch, staring at nothing, occasionally wiping tears from her face. Around 6 o'clock, Elliot came home. He was in a good mood, whistling as he walked through the door. Hey, he said, heading straight for the stairs. I'm going to shower and then head out. Got plans. What kind of plans? I asked, my voice steady despite the chaos inside me. Just hanging with some friends. Nothing major. Lies. All lies. And he delivered them so casually, so confidently, like he'd done it 1,000 times before. Elliot, I said. He turned, one foot on the bottom step. Yeah? I wanted to tell him, wanted to warn him, give him one last chance to back out, to change his mind. But I knew it wouldn't matter. He'd already made his choice. Be careful out there, I said instead. He smiled. Always am, Dad. And then he was gone, up the stairs, leaving me standing there with my fists clenched and my heart breaking. At 8:30, he left the house. Diane and I watched from the window as he drove away in the beat-up Honda he'd bought with God knows what money. It's done, Greg texted me. Units are in position. I'm at the location. Stay by your phones. And so we waited, two parents sitting in their dark living room, waiting to find out if their son would be arrested. Waiting to find out if they'd done the right thing or just destroyed their family forever. The call came at 9:45. It's over, Greg said. They're all in custody. Caught them outside the house trying to break in through the back door. Elliot tried to run, but they got him. Warren, Diane, I'm sorry. I felt my legs give out. Sat down hard on the couch. Diane was crying again, her hands covering her face. What happens now? I managed to ask. They're taking them to the station. They'll be processed, charged. I explained the situation to the lead detective. He's willing to go lighter on Elliot if you cooperate, provide the evidence you have. But there will still be consequences. Probation at minimum, possibly a short jail sentence, and mandatory counseling. Can we see him? Not tonight. Maybe tomorrow. But Warren, you should know. He's angry, really angry. He knows you were involved somehow. He figured it out. I don't care, I said, and I meant it. Let him be angry. At least he's alive. At least he didn't hurt anyone. But I thought it was over then. Thought the hardest part was behind us. Thought that now we could start the long, painful process of healing and rebuilding. I was wrong. So wrong. Because when I finally saw my son again, when I looked into his eyes in that police station interrogation room, I realized the nightmare was just beginning. They let us see him the next morning. Greg arranged it. Pulled some strings to get us a few minutes before the arraignment. Diane and I drove to the police station in silence, both of us exhausted, both of us dreading what was coming. They led us to a small room with a metal table and hard chairs, no windows, fluorescent lights that buzzed and flickered, a room designed to make you feel trapped, hopeless. Elliot was already there when we walked in, his hands cuffed in front of him. He looked up when we entered, and the expression on his face made my blood run cold. Pure hatred. Absolute burning hatred. "Get out," he said. "Elliot," Diane started. "I said get out. I don't want to see you. I don't want to talk to you." "Son, please," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "We did what we had to do. We couldn't let you hurt those people." He laughed, that same bitter, mocking laugh I'd heard on the video. "You couldn't let me hurt your precious reputation, you mean? Couldn't let your perfect little world get tarnished by your son being a criminal. That's not true. We were trying to protect you, protect everyone." "Protect me?" He leaned forward, his eyes blazing. "You destroyed me, Dad. You and your rules and your discipline and your impossibly high standards. You made me into this. You pushed and pushed and pushed until I broke. And now you have the audacity to sit here and act like you saved me?" "We gave you structure," I said, my own anger rising now. "We gave you love and support and every opportunity." "You gave me a cage," he shouted. "You suffocated me my entire life. Every decision I made had to meet your approval. Every choice had to fit your vision of what a good son should be. Do you have any idea what it's like to live like that? To feel like you're never good enough? Never quite meeting the mark? Never able to just breathe without wondering if Dad's going to disapprove? So you decided to become a criminal?" I shot back. "That's your solution? That's your rebellion?" "I decided to be free, to live my life without you controlling every aspect of it. And yeah, I made some bad choices. But at least they were my choices." Diane was sobbing now, quietly, her shoulders shaking. "We love you, Elliot. We've always loved you." "You loved the idea of me," he said coldly. "The obedient son. The respectful, well-behaved son. But you never loved me, the real me, because you never even tried to know who that was." I felt like he'd punched me in the chest. "That's not fair. We did everything for you." "You did everything to me," he corrected. "There's a difference, Dad. And now I'm sitting here in handcuffs because you couldn't even give me the chance to make my own mistakes. You had to control that too. Had to orchestrate my downfall to protect your image of being the perfect father." "We did it to protect innocent people." I slammed my hand on the table. "You were going to rob an elderly couple. What were we supposed to do? Let you do it?" "You were supposed to be my parents," he said quietly. And for the first time, I heard something other than anger in his voice. Pain. Deep, wounded pain. "You were supposed to talk to me, ask me what was going on, try to understand. But instead you spied on me, set me up, Had your brother-in-law arrange for my arrest like I'm some kind of criminal you have no connection to. You are a criminal, I said. Your choices made you one. Your parenting made me one. And there it was, the accusation I'd been dreading, the words that would haunt me for the rest of my life. The guard knocked on the door then. Time's up. Elliot stood, his chains rattling. He looked at us one last time, his face empty now, void of emotion. I don't want to see you again, he said. When I get out of this, whenever that is, I'm gone. I'm done with both of you. Done with this family. Done with pretending like any of this was ever about love. Elliot. Diane reached for him, but he stepped back. Don't. Just don't. And then they led him away, and we were left standing in that cold, empty room, the sound of his chains echoing in the hallway. The weeks that followed were a living hell. Elliot was charged with attempted burglary, conspiracy, and several other crimes. His friends turned on him, gave statements, tried to reduce their own sentences by claiming he was the ringleader. The evidence we provided, the video, the cash, ensured he had no way to fight the charges. His lawyer negotiated a plea deal, 18 months in jail, followed by 5 years probation and mandatory therapy. The judge called it lenient, given the circumstances, called us brave for coming forward. I didn't feel brave. I felt like a failure, like a father who'd broken something precious and irreplaceable. Diane fell into a deep depression. She could barely get out of bed some days, would spend hours staring at old photos of Elliot, crying, wondering where we went wrong. I threw myself into work, stayed late at the office, volunteered for extra projects. Anything to avoid coming home to that empty house, that empty chair at the dinner table, that empty space where my son used to be. People at church whispered, neighbors avoided us. Word had gotten out somehow about what happened. We became the cautionary tale, the family that looked perfect on the outside but was rotten from within. I aged 10 years in 3 months. Saw it in the mirror every morning. The new lines around my eyes, the gray taking over my hair, the slump in my shoulders that never used to be there. Greg checked in on us regularly, told us we did the right thing, that Elliot would eventually understand, that time and therapy would help him see that we loved him, that we were trying to protect him. But I didn't believe him. Because I'd seen the look in Elliot's eyes that day in the interrogation room. That wasn't temporary anger. That was permanent damage. That was a relationship severed beyond repair. 6 months passed. Elliot refused to see us, refused our calls, our letters. His lawyer told us he was doing okay in jail, keeping his head down, going to the mandated counseling sessions, but he wanted nothing to do with us. Then, on a rainy Tuesday evening in October, just as I was settling into another lonely dinner alone, Diane had gone to bed early again. My phone rang. It was the jail. Mr. Mitchell, this is Officer Thompson from County Correctional. Your son, he's asked to see you, tomorrow 2 o'clock. Will you be available? My heart stopped. Yes, I'll be there. He specifically asked for just you, not your wife, just you. I hung up, my hands shaking. After 6 months of silence, Elliot wanted to see me. What did that mean? Was he ready to talk, to listen? Or was this just one final opportunity to tell me exactly what he thought of me before cutting me out of his life forever? I didn't sleep that night, just lay there in the dark, rehearsing what I would say, how I would explain, how I would apologize for my failures while also standing by my decision to stop him. The next afternoon, I drove to the jail alone, signed in, went through security, waited in the visitor's room with my stomach in knots, and then they brought him in. He looked different, thinner, harder. His hair was shorter, his face more angular. But his eyes were different too, less angry, more something else, something I couldn't quite identify. We sat across from each other, a scratched plexiglass barrier between us. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Just stared at each other. Two men who used to be father and son, but now were something else. Something undefined and painful. "Thanks for coming," he finally said, his voice quiet. "Of course. I'd come any time you asked." He nodded slowly. "I've been doing a lot of thinking, a lot of therapy. Been forced to really look at myself, at my choices, at everything." I waited, barely breathing. "The therapist says I have a lot of unresolved anger. Says I've been blaming you for my problems instead of taking responsibility for my own actions." He paused. "She's probably right. About some of it anyway. Elliot, let me finish, please." I nodded. "I'm not going to sit here and say you were the perfect father. You weren't. You were hard on me. Really hard. And yeah, there were times when I felt like nothing I did was good enough for you, like I was always falling short of some impossible standard." Every word was a knife in my heart. "But," he continued, and his voice cracked slightly, "that doesn't excuse what I did, the choices I made, the people I hurt, including you and Mom. I was angry, and I let that anger turn me into someone I don't even recognize now." "I'm sorry," I said, my own voice breaking. "I'm so sorry. I thought I was doing the right thing, raising you the way I did. I thought I was preparing you for the world, making you strong. I didn't realize I was crushing me," he offered, a sad smile on his face. "Yeah, you were. But you were also teaching me things, important things, things I'm only now starting to appreciate, like integrity, like taking responsibility, like doing what's right even when it's hard." "What are you saying?" He took a deep breath. "I'm saying, Dad, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for what I said to you, for what I put you and Mom through, for making you feel like you had to turn in your own son. I'm sorry for becoming someone you couldn't recognize. And just when I thought life was returning to normal, just when I thought maybe we could start to heal, he said something that changed everything again. "There's something else I need to tell you," he said, his eyes dropping to the table between us. "Something I didn't tell the police. Something that's going to come out eventually, and I wanted you to hear it from me first." My blood ran cold. "What is it?" He looked up at me, and I saw fear in his eyes. Real, genuine fear. Those 3 guys I was with? They weren't just criminals I met randomly. They're connected to something bigger, a network. And he swallowed hard. "I gave them a lot of information, Dad, about a lot of people, not just from Mom's clinic, from church, from the neighborhood, from everywhere. They've been using it to target people for months, and some of those robberies, they didn't go well. People got hurt. One elderly man had a heart attack during a break-in. He survived, but..." I felt the room spin around me. "Oh my God, Elliot, what are you telling me?" "I'm telling you it's worse than you thought. Worse than what I was charged with. And when it all comes out, when they connect all the dots, I'm looking at more time, Dad. A lot more time. That conversation was 8 months ago. As I sit here now, telling you this story, my son is still in prison. His sentence was extended to 6 years after the full scope of his involvement came to light. 6 years. My son will be 30 years old when he gets out, if he gets out early for good behavior. The network he was part of was dismantled. 12 people arrested. Hundreds of thousands of dollars in stolen goods recovered. And yes, an elderly man did have a heart attack during one of their break-ins. He survived, thank God, but he's never been the same. I think about him sometimes, about his family, about how my son's actions rippled out and destroyed lives I'll never meet. Diane and I are still together, but our marriage is scarred. We're in therapy now, working through our own guilt, our own grief, our own disagreements about where we went wrong. Some days are better than others. Some days we can talk about Elliot without crying. Other days, the weight of it all is too much to bear. I visit him once a month. We're rebuilding, slowly, very slowly. He's changed in prison. Genuinely changed, I think. He's taking college courses online. He's working in the library. He writes me letters now, real letters, where he talks about what he's learning, about himself, about life, about responsibility and consequences. In his last letter, he wrote something that has stayed with me. Dad, I spent so many years blaming you for my problems, blaming your strictness, your rules, your high expectations. And yeah, maybe some of that was justified. Maybe you were too hard on me sometimes. But the truth I've finally accepted is that I had a choice. I always had a choice. You didn't make me steal. You didn't make me lie. You didn't make me hurt people. I did that. I chose that path because I was angry and selfish and convinced I was entitled to whatever I wanted. He wrote, "The irony is, all those lessons you tried to teach me about integrity, responsibility, facing consequences, I'm learning them now, just in the hardest way possible. You tried to prepare me for the world, and I rejected it. Now the world is teaching me those same lessons, and I can't reject them anymore. But here's what I want you to understand, what I need you to hear. This story isn't just about my son's failures. It's about mine, too. I was so focused on discipline, on control, on shaping my son into my vision of what a man should be, that I forgot to actually see him, to listen to him, to understand who he was becoming, not who I wanted him to be. I was so determined not to raise a weak, entitled child that I swung too far the other way. I created an environment where he felt he could never be good enough, never measure up, never truly be himself. That doesn't excuse what he did. Nothing excuses that. But it explains part of it. The anger he carried, the resentment that festered, the rebellion that eventually consumed him. If I could go back, I would do things differently. I would still have rules, still have expectations, still teach him about responsibility and consequences. But I would balance it with more grace, more listening, more acceptance of who he was, not just correction of who he wasn't. I would tell him more often that I loved him, not just for what he accomplished, but for who he was. I would ask him how he felt instead of just telling him what he should do. I would show him that making mistakes was part of growing up, not something to be ashamed of or punished for severely. I've learned too late that you can't control your way into raising a good person. You can guide, you can teach, you can model good behavior. But ultimately, they have to choose for themselves, and the tighter you grip, the harder they'll fight to break free. If something feels wrong in your relationship with your child, trust your instincts. But trust them to have a real conversation, not just to tighten the reins. Ask questions, listen without judgment. Create space for honesty, even when that honesty is painful. I missed all the signs because I was so sure I was right, so convinced my methods were working. I mistook his compliance for respect, his silence for agreement, his outward obedience for inner integrity. Don't make my mistake. Watch for the emotional distance, the resentment in their eyes, the way they shut down around you. Those are warning signs that something needs to change in your relationship, not signs that you need to discipline harder. And if you discover your child is headed down a dangerous path, yes, you have to act. You have to protect them and protect others. But do it with love, not just authority. Do it with the understanding that you may have played a role in pushing them there. Do it with humility and the willingness to change yourself too. The grief I carry isn't just about what my son did, it's about what I didn't do. The conversations we never had. The acceptance I never showed. The unconditional love I talked about but never quite demonstrated in a way he could feel. I'm telling you this story not because I'm proud of it, not because I want sympathy, but because I want you to learn from my mistakes. Whether you're a parent, a grandparent, a teacher, a mentor, anyone who has influence over a young person's life, please hear this. Connection matters more than control. Understanding matters more than obedience. A child who feels truly seen and accepted is far less likely to rebel destructively than a child who feels suffocated and judged. And if it's too late, if your child has already made terrible choices, if you're sitting in the wreckage wondering what to do next, know this. It's never too late to change your part in the dynamic. It's never too late to apologize for your failures while still holding them accountable for theirs. It's never too late to rebuild, even if that rebuilding is slow and painful and incomplete. My relationship with my son will never be what I dreamed it would be. That perfect father-son bond I envisioned is gone, but we have something real now, something honest, something built on mutual acknowledgement of our failures and our desire to do better. That's not nothing. In fact, some days that feels like everything. This could happen to anyone. Good parents, loving parents, parents who think they're doing everything right. Because the truth is, there is no perfect formula. Every child is different, every family is different. And sometimes, despite our best efforts, things go terribly wrong. What matters is how we respond. Whether we have the courage to face our own failures. Whether we choose love over pride. Whether we're willing to do the hard, painful work of rebuilding what was broken. That's the lesson I've learned, paid for in tears and sleepless nights and shattered dreams. And if sharing my story prevents even one person from going through what my family has endured, then maybe, just maybe, all this pain will have meant something. If this story touched your heart, if it made you think about your own relationships, your own family, your own parenting, or your own past, please let me know. Hit that like button, subscribe to this channel. Because sharing these stories, these painful, honest, messy stories of real human struggles is how we learn, how we grow, how we realize we're not alone in our failures and our pain. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from right now. What city, what country, what corner of the world you're in. Tell me what time it is where you are. Because right now, in this moment, we're connected by this story, by this shared understanding that life is complicated and messy, and sometimes heartbreaking. Maybe you're a parent who recognized yourself in my mistakes. Maybe you're someone who felt like Elliot, suffocated by expectations and rules. Maybe you're someone who's dealing with your own family crisis, your own devastating revelation, your own impossible choices. Whatever your story is, whatever brought you here today, know that you're not alone. None of us are. We're all just doing our best, making mistakes, trying to learn, trying to love, trying to survive the weight of our own choices and the choices of the people we love. I read every single comment, every single message, and they matter to me. You matter to me. Your story matters, so please reach out. Let me know this resonated with you. Let me know you're out there listening, understanding, maybe even forgiving your own parents or your own children for not being perfect. Because perfection is a lie. It doesn't exist. All we have is the messy, complicated reality of loving imperfect people in an imperfect world. And that has to be enough, because it's all any of us have. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for letting me share this pain, this lesson, this hard-won wisdom. I hope it helps someone. I hope it prevents someone from making my mistakes. I hope it gives someone the courage to reach out to a estranged child or parent and try, just try, to rebuild. That's all we can do. Keep trying. Keep loving. Keep hoping that the broken pieces can be put back together into something new, something real, something worth saving. God bless you wherever you are, whatever time it is in your part of the world, whatever struggles you're facing today. You're not alone. None of us are. And maybe that's the most important lesson of all.